They say she cried at every burial, always in dark gloves and a sheer mourning veil, standing graveside while the town watched. People whispered she handled loss with remarkable grace. A husband gone, then kids, then another husband, more kids, another husband after that. But when a Connecticut doctor finally refused to sign off on yet another death in her home, investigators started connecting the dots. Bodies piled up over more than 10 years. What exactly had this woman been doing? Hey everyone, real quick before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on more stories like this one. Drop a comment too, and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is there. Your support makes these deep dives possible. All right, let's get into it. Picture Connecticut in the fall of 1870. Darby, a factory town about 8 miles inland from New Haven Harbor. The Naugatuck River cutting black through mill buildings, the sharp tang of iron from the forge hanging in the air. Darby was tight-knit, the kind of place where everyone knew your business, where missing church got noticed, where a woman with good manners and a steady hand around the house earned real respect. That's where Lydia Sherman showed up to marry for the 3rd time. She was mid-40s, still attractive, composed in a way that people admired. Her new husband, Horatio Nelson Sherman, worked as a mechanic with a decent reputation, but bad luck after losing his first wife. He had 4 kids at home, and his late wife's mother helping out. By spring of 1871, Horatio was dead. 2 of his kids were dead. And the woman who'd wept so gracefully at those funerals was behind bars. Lydia didn't arrive in Darby without baggage. Born Christmas Eve, 1824, in Burlington, New Jersey. Her mother died when she was 9 months old. Her father remarried fast and shipped Lydia off to live with an uncle on his farm. She stayed there until 16, then moved to New Brunswick to live with her brother and got work as a tailor. People remembered her as pretty, pleasant, with piercing blue eyes that stuck in your memory. At a Methodist service in New Brunswick, she met Edward Struck, a widowed blacksmith pushing 40 with 2 kids from his first marriage. Despite the age gap, they courted and married. By 1845, they'd moved to New York City, where Edward joined the brand new Metropolitan Police Force that replaced the old night watch system the exploding city had outgrown. They settled on 125th Street in Harlem. Over the next years, Lydia had 7 children, 4 girls, 3 boys. Gas lamps lit each evening, city noise pushing through the windows. The firstborn, Josephine, died as an infant. The other 6 survived, at least for a while. Then Edward lost his police job. The story went around in hushed tones. He'd been called to handle trouble at a hotel ballroom but showed up late. During that delay, a New York detective got killed. An internal review concluded Edward hesitated, maybe from fear. The department fired him on the spot. No other work came. He took to bed. People suggested maybe he needed to be institutionalized. Lydia resisted moving her husband out of the house. Within weeks, Edward Struck was dead. New York in the 1860s was a place where death barely needed explaining. Nearly 1 million people crammed together. Disease everywhere. Cholera swept the tenements every summer. Typhus settled into poor neighborhoods and wouldn't leave. Typhoid, dysentery, tuberculosis. Death records got longer every year. A depressed middle-aged man dying in a Harlem home didn't raise any flags. Soon after Edward's burial, his 3 youngest kids died one after another. Martha Ann was 6. Little Edward was 4. William, the baby, was just 1. They all died within weeks of their father, each blamed on the season's fevers. Nobody thought much of it. That left Lydia with 3 kids. Her oldest daughter, also named Lydia, was 18 and working as a clerk at a Harlem dry goods store. Her son George, 14, apprenticed as a painter. The youngest, Ann Eliza, was 12, old enough to work and help out. George got sick next. The doctor called it painter's colic from the lead compounds used in paint back then. Days later, George was dead at 14. Winter 1864 brought fog and cold to Harlem streets. Ann Eliza caught a fever. Her older sister quit her job at the store to stay home and care for her. Ann Eliza died anyway. The older Lydia started sewing bonnets at home for income. She got sick too, then died. 7 children born to Lydia struck. Not one left alive. Edward's son from his first marriage, Cornelius Struck, raised concerns with authorities. He pointed out it was pretty remarkable that every kid his father had with Lydia was now dead, 6 of them in just a few months, while Lydia herself never showed any symptoms. The authorities said they'd investigate. They didn't investigate. Lydia found work eventually at a sewing machine shop. That's where a man named John Curtis learned she had nursing experience and asked if she'd care for his elderly mother in Stratford, Connecticut. Lydia said yes. She moved into the old woman's house and stayed 8 months. Then another offer came. A wealthy widower named Dennis Hubbard in Stratford needed a housekeeper. Lydia took that job too. She moved into Hubbard's house and handled things with her usual efficiency. Hubbard was lonely. Within weeks, he proposed marriage. She accepted. Stratford neighbors watched the new Mrs. Hubbard go about her business and said she seemed devoted and caring. She was mid-40s, much younger than her husband, described as dignified and attractive. 14 months after the wedding, Dennis Hubbard was dead. Lydia inherited his house worth about $20,000 plus another $10,000 in cash. September 1870, Lydia married for the 3rd time. Horatio Nelson Sherman, mechanic with money troubles but a solid reputation. Born February 19, 1824, same year as Lydia. Widower with 4 kids. Nelson, 17. Ada, 15. Nathaniel, 4. Baby Frankie, not even a year old yet. Horatio's late wife's mother still lived there, helping with the baby. Lydia moved into the Sherman house in Derby. Household settled into new routines. Within weeks, baby Frankie got sick. The infant died shortly after. With no baby to care for, the grandmother left. Ada was next. The 15-year-old admired all over town, caught an illness, and died. By this point, Horatio Sherman was falling apart. Losing Frankie and Ada so soon after his first wife left him completely broken. He started drinking. He'd vanish for days, come back having blown whatever money Lydia gave him. This went on for months. Lydia got him to join the temperance movement. He stayed sober for a few weeks, then started drinking again. After one particularly rough night, he came home and got violently ill. He died shortly after. A doctor named Beardsley was called to handle the paperwork. He wasn't satisfied. A previously healthy man dying, this suddenly didn't add up. He noticed 2 of Sherman's kids had also died recently, under the same roof. Beardsley asked the widow if he could do an autopsy before signing the death certificate. Lydia Sherman said she had no problem with that. Beardsley sent the organs to Professor George Frederick Barker at Yale for chemical analysis. Testing took several weeks. When results came back, they were crystal clear. Massive amounts of arsenic in Horatio Nelson Sherman's body. Friends of the late Sherman immediately demanded the bodies of Frankie and Ada be exhumed. Authorities agreed. Autopsies were just as thorough. Arsenic in both. Dennis Hubbard's body, Lydia's second husband, was also dug up. Analysis confirmed what everyone suspected by then. Arsenic there too. If you're as hooked on this case as we are, take a second to like this video and subscribe. It really helps us keep digging into these forgotten historical stories. We read every comment too, so drop your thoughts below. Let's keep going. Mrs. Lydia Sherman had by this time traveled to New Brunswick, New Jersey to stay with relatives. June 7th, 1871, she was arrested there, charged with murder and taken to New Haven, Connecticut to be held for trial. People said she took the news of her arrest with a calmness that made no sense. The trial of Lydia Sherman opened April 16th, 1872, at Superior Court in New Haven. The case drew attention nationwide. Journalists flooded in, editors knowing readers were devouring every detail. Some papers called her the poison fiend, others the arch-murderess. Some compared her to the infamous Borgias of Renaissance Italy. In the courtroom, Mrs. Sherman looked completely different from what you'd expect. Prim and composed in a black alpaca dress, black and white shawl, silk gloves, straw hat with a thin black veil. She was 47. Several reporters noted how ordinary she seemed, how far from what a monster should look like. She sat calm, almost cheerful behind her veil. When asked how she pleaded to murder charges, she answered not guilty. The trial ran 8 days. Prosecution presented Professor Barker's chemical findings and called witnesses, including Dr. Beardsley, neighbors from Derby, people who knew the deceased. Defense didn't argue against arsenic being found in Sherman's body. They claimed he either ingested it accidentally or took it himself, driven to despair by losing his first wife and children. They pointed out a compound called salaris, which looked like baking soda and was sometimes mixed with cider to make it fizz, was kept in the house. Maybe arsenic got mistaken for it. Lydia wanted to testify. Her lawyers wouldn't let her. The prosecution's evidence was chemically solid, but circumstantial on who actually gave the poison. After deliberating, the jury came back with guilty of second-degree murder. Some papers condemned the verdict, saying the jury couldn't stomach sending a woman to hang and went with the lesser charge based on that rather than evidence. The judge sentenced Lydia Sherman to life in Connecticut State Prison at Wethersfield. She showed no reaction. Connecticut State Prison received its most famous inmate spring of 1872. Inside those walls, Lydia Sherman became, in one weird way, an author. With help from the prison's chief officer, Captain Weber, she dictated a confession. The resulting book, published 1873 as The Poison Fiend's Life, Crimes and Conviction of Lydia Sherman, became a bestseller. Lydia could barely read, struggled keeping her stories straight. Dates and details don't always match official records, but what she confessed was stunning in scope. She admitted poisoning her first husband, Edward Struck, and 6 of their children. She admitted poisoning her second husband, Dennis Hubbard. She admitted poisoning baby Frankie and young Ada Sherman. She insisted, pretty forcefully, she hadn't poisoned Horatio Nelson Sherman. His death was an accident. Maybe he mistook the arsenic she kept around for that Salaris compound and drank it without knowing. Ironic that the one death she denied was the one she got convicted for. She told a story about how the poisoning started. Claimed a police sergeant living next door to the Struck household suggested it. Edward was out of his mind, would never recover. Better to get him out of the way. The sergeant told her where to buy arsenic and how much to use. Whether this was true, partly true, or reconstructed to spread blame, nobody knows. June 1877, 5 years into her sentence, Lydia escaped from Wethersfield. The method baffled authorities. She faked fainting spells repeatedly, convincing people she was sick. She got a white dress to replace her prison uniform. Under supervision of a careless matron, she walked straight out the prison gates. Associates met her outside. She traveled to Providence, Rhode Island. Her escape made national headlines. She got rearrested after checking into a Providence hotel as Mrs. Brown from Philadelphia, then in conversation with the proprietor's wife, Mrs. Sears, gave her name as Mrs. Moore. Sears got suspicious and called police. Lydia went back to Wethersfield. The book got reprinted in 1878. That same year, May 16th, after a period of illness, Lydia Sherman died inside the prison walls. The exact body count was never definitively established. Confirmed through exhumation and chemical testing, 4 deaths. Her own confessions suggest a much higher number, maybe 10, maybe more. First husband, 6 children. Second husband, infant stepchild, teenage stepdaughter. Names in parish registers and death books, each blamed at the time on fever season. Painter's colic. The ordinary grief hitting working families in an American city, still figuring out how to hold so many lives together. The Naugatuck River still flows through Derby. The Forge buildings are long gone or completely changed. The house where the Sherman family lived isn't recorded in any preservation documents. Behind whatever windows are there now, other lives have happened. Other kitchens warmed up. Other voices spoke names into regular air. Beyond that, just the ledger.